Say the weird thing. People are desperately seeking realness.
The multiverse. A lot of scientists think it's real. Maybe not the way that it exists in pop culture, but a lot of scientists do in fact believe that it's a real thing. Possibly endless universes, like cells in the body, comprising some much bigger, much more horrifying superstructure that human minds cannot conceive of. But I digress. That's not what this video is about. I don't know how to explain this the way that I want to, so bear with me. I fell down the rabbit hole a little bit on this one, and it's making me feel a little insane. When characters in shows and movies start talking about the universe, like the MCU, or the Spiderverse, or Rick and Morty, there seems to be this idea and insinuation that the multiverse, like the universe itself, is technically endless. But then, the creators start having to put like hard and heavy limitations on it in order to enforce certain rules and tropes and make them digestible for the audience. Which, as a writer, I understand that to a point. But this got me thinking. In Rick and Morty, there's an episode in season 1 where an evil Rick is showing the mainline show Rick that there is only one other Rick between them in the entire finite curve that separates the two. The story implications being that mainline Rick is basically one bad choice away from becoming or being totally evil. Which, okay, sure, themes and arcs and stuff. But if you really take the concept of infinity into account and shove it in there, if I understand it the way that I think I do, that can't be right. Right? Because infinity is literally unending. Forever. You can't put a limit on it. Infinite doesn't mean big. It doesn't mean so big that we have no conception of it. It doesn't mean that there's technically ending, but we call it unending because it's easier. No, mathematically, logically, literally, it's unending in all directions. Forever. So to say that there is literally only one Rick in the endless multiverse that separates the show's mainline Rick from the evil Rick, that can't be possible. It's not enough that there are endless Ricks, okay? There are also endless versions of each permutation of Rick. The mainline Rick of the show, there are endless versions of him. That evil Rick, telling our mainline Rick all of this, there are infinite versions of him too. They are all essentially the same as that evil Rick. And the one Rick between them that seemingly separates the good Rick from the bad Rick, endless versions of that guy too. Not just one. It's also not as simple as saying, well, okay, but if there are endless versions of the mainline Rick, then each version of that Rick in each universe is a different permutation of that Rick in some small way. Like one might work in retail, or one might be a spy, or one might be a billionaire. Except there are endless versions of those permutations too. An infinite amount of mainline Rick. An infinite amount of them working in retail, and as a spy, and as a billionaire. Just countless versions of them. Or it could be in one universe that Rick had pancakes for breakfast one day, and in another he had waffles, and there's literally no other difference. Same diff. There are infinite versions of both of those things. And here's the thing, it made me a little crazy. There are infinite versions of that Rick that have literally no observable difference from one another. Like, not even on the microscopic or the subatomic level. Just endless copies. It doesn't matter how many times you try to put a limitation on this, or how many levels you go up or down and try to go, there are still infinite versions of whatever you come up with. And here's another thing. Rick skipping from one universe to another, saying that he and Morty can only bail on a universe a half a dozen times tops. If what I'm saying is true, that whole scenario isn't true either. Rick and Morty literally have endless universes to choose from with perfect circumstances to just keep jumping from one to another as if nothing happened. Forever. And if another universe happened to implode or disappear or whatever, that doesn't necessarily make the multiverse one universe less. Or that the universe is gone forever, that just, disappeared into nothing. Because in the infinite, you don't run out. In the infinite, there are infinite versions of the universe that just blipped out of existence that are totally fine. Do you see what I'm getting at here? It's not as simple as saying in one universe Rick is a shrimp and in one universe Rick is a moron. I just don't think that's how infinity works. But that's probably not something you can convey or would even want to convey on a show like Rick and Morty, or anything really depicting the multiverse, which is probably, at least in part, why people on those shows and movies choose not to. My head hurts.